characteristics that can enhance a composite image is to have a strong sense of depth. We already have that at this point in the composite process from the strong perspective created by the pier and the clouds leading to the door in the distance. Let's bring in 2 more layers to create additional depth in the scene. I'll choose File, Place Embedded, and select Clouds for Sky.jpg and click Place to bring it into the image. I'll drag the layer up until the bottom edge is just below the horizon in the image below. Then I'll press Enter on the keyboard to place the new layer. I want to modify the new clouds layer so that only the white clouds are showing and not the blue sky behind them. To create this effect, I'll use the Blend If sliders in the Layer Styles dialog again. A shortcut to access the Layer Styles dialog is to double-click just to the right of the layer name in the Layers panel. In the Blend If sliders, I'll work with the shadow slider for this layer. I'll drag it to the right to about 113. This hides the parts of the sky on this layer that are darker than level 113, showing only the clouds. Then I'll Option or Alt-click on the slider to split it, and move the right half to about 185, which softens the transition. This creates a really cool blend of the clouds with the doorway and the seascape below. I'll click OK to apply that effect. If the lower edge of the Clouds for Sky layer is too hard, you can add a simple layer mask, and then use the brush tool to paint with black and soften the edge there. Now I'll zoom in for a closer look using the Command or Control+ shortcut. In the Layers panel, I'll drag the boat layer up above the new clouds layer. While I'm in here, I'll edit the layer mask for the new clouds to suggest more depth and layering there. I'll click the mask thumbnail for the Clouds for Sky layer to make the mask active. I'll press B to make the brush tool active, and with black as the foreground color, I'll paint on the closer door structures. I want the far background clouds to appear behind the door, while the closer clouds are slightly obscuring the main door image. If I make a mistake painting the mask, I can just tap X to exchange the colors and then paint with the opposite color to undo the changes. I'll soften the clouds on the right by making my brush size larger, and then painting with black at 50% opacity to hide them and show more of the point at the top of the door. Painting with a lower opacity makes it easier to gradually apply an effect. Next, I think this scene needs some wildlife. With the Clouds for Sky layer still selected, I'll choose File, Place Embedded, and select the birds.jpg file, and then click Place. A new layer of the birds image comes in above the Clouds for Sky layer and below the sailboat layer. The white or nearly white areas in the birds layer can be used with a blending mode that will hide that color. In the Layers panel, I'll open the blending mode menu and choose Multiply. This blend mode does not recognize white, so the lighter sky tones on this layer are hidden. Now let's scale the layer smaller before we place it. I'll use the width and height field in the options bar to scale the layer down. I'll enter 50% for the width, and then I'll click on the chain link icon to sync the height setting, making it the same as the value I entered for the width. Then I'll press Enter or click the check mark on the options bar to apply those changes. I'll choose the Move tool and I'll use it to reposition the birds layer so that the boat is in the space between the seagulls. Bringing in new layers that suggest foreground to background elements in the scene, such as the birds and the new clouds over the doorway, can often be an effective way to build a sense of depth in a composite image. The overall composite is looking pretty good now, but the colors on the door and the new clouds are a bit out of sync with the warmer sunset colors of the background sky. To fix that, I'll sample some colors from the sunset image. I'll click the Sunset Sky layer to make it active, and then select the eyedropper tool in the Tools panel. I'll click on some of the bright yellow-orange color on the right side of the sky. This places that color in the foreground swatch at the bottom of the Tools panel. Now I'll make the Clouds for Sky layer active. I'll click the Add Adjustment Layer button at the bottom of the Layers panel and choose Solid Color. A solid color fill layer is created using the yellow-orange color that I had already sampled with the eyedropper tool. If I wanted to modify the color, I could do it in this dialog. But I'll just click OK to accept that color and close the Color Picker Solid Fill dialog. The new color fill layer is obscuring all the layers below it with a flat color. I'll use a blend mode that will blend the color from this layer with the brightness and details from the layers below. I'll open the blend mode menu at the top of the Layers panel and choose Color. That's much better, but the color fill layer is being applied to all of the layers below it. I only want it to affect the Clouds for Sky layer, so I'll apply an effect known as a clipping mask. I'll go to the Layer menu and choose Create Clipping Mask. The clipping mask effect uses the transparent areas of the underlying layer as a virtual mask. So the yellow from the color fill layer is only showing up on the visible areas of the clouds for sky layer. I think this effect is a bit too strong though, so I'll lower the layer opacity to about 55%. That's working nicely for the clouds over the door, but I also want to create a stronger color look that uses both the yellow-orange as well as the purple hues in the sunset. I'll click back on the sunset sky layer to make it active. The yellow-orange color that I sampled earlier to create the color fill layer should still be in the foreground color swatch. I want a more saturated version of this color, so I'll click on the foreground swatch to bring up the color picker. In the large box that controls brightness and saturation, I'll move the color sampler slider over a bit to the right to choose a more saturated version of that color. Then I'll click OK. Next, I'll click on the background color swatch to open the color picker and choose a new background color. My cursor automatically becomes an eyedropper tool, and I can click in the image and sample some of the soft purple color on the left side of the sunset sky layer. Once again, I'll move the color sampler to the right a bit to select a more saturated version of the soft purple color. Then I'll click OK to close the color picker. Now I'll add a gradient layer with a blending mode to add an orange to purple gradient into the image. In order to place the gradient layer at the top of the layer stack, I'll click on the topmost layer, the sailboat, to make it active. I'll click on the Add Adjustment Layer button at the bottom of the Layers panel and choose Gradient. In the Gradient Fill dialog, I'll open the gradient picker at the top and I'll choose the first swatch, which are the foreground and background colors that I've already chosen. Then I'll set the angle to 180, which will place the purple on the left and the orange on the right. I'll click OK to close the Gradient Fill dialog. Now I just need to blend the colors into the image below. To do that, I'll open the Mode menu at the top of the Layers panel and choose Soft Light. The far right side of the scene is looking a bit too yellow, so I'll get the brush tool and then set the brush opacity to 50% in the options bar. I'll click on the thumbnail of the layer mask for the gradient layer to make it active and exchange my colors to make black the foreground color. Then I'll paint with black on the gradient layer mask to minimize the yellow effect on the right side of the image. Finally, I'll add a bit more contrast to the entire image. I'll click the Add Adjustment Layer button and choose Curves. In the Curves Properties panel, I'll drag down a bit on the lower part of the curve to darken the darker tones, and then drag up a bit on the upper part of the curve to brighten the lighter tones. This provides a nice contrast boost to both the image and the new color gradient. I hope that you enjoyed this video series and are inspired to find new ways to apply some of these techniques to your own imaging projects. Thanks for watching.